Hello again, Homewood Patriot fans. Welcome to this episode of Legends of Homewood Patriots Football, featuring our 14th legend, Ameer Abdullah. As we have seen, starting in 1995, Homewood won 5 state championships under head coach Bob Newton, who started at the school as an assistant in 1976. After the 2005 season, however, Homewood was hit with a double whammy. First, Newton was sidelined by a staph infection and eventually decided to retire after 33 years with Homewood, turning the head coaching job over to highly successful defensive coordinator Dickie Wright. As much as Coach Wright definitely deserved the job, it was sad to see a legend's coaching career end. The second whammy, however, was that Homewood was lifted again to 6A, at that time the highest class in the state, which they never really belonged in. The result was the Patriots endured 6 years of mediocrity. The bright spot during those years, however, was the play of our 14th legend, Ameer Abdullah. Despite playing running back in middle school, as a freshman and sophomore, Ameer tried playing slot receiver for a couple of seasons before getting moved back to running back, where he thrived during his junior and senior years. We will talk about his stats later, but I'm convinced that had he played more than 2 years at running back, and had Homewood been in 5A where they belonged, those numbers would have been much higher than they already are. Perhaps one of the most remarkable things about Ameer, however, is that as a dedicated Muslim, he has had to endure fasting from sunrise to sunset during the holy month of Ramadan, even when it overlaps with football practice, as it did in the August before his senior year. Can you imagine practicing and playing football in an Alabama summer without even drinking water? As you'll see in the interview, however, Ameer is a very focused individual, dedicated to physical endurance. Abdullah was not as big as Homewood running backs legends like Robert Davis and Brandon Thornton, but he was even more shifty than they were. In fact, I don't think I've seen a Homewood back that was more gifted at making his way through traffic than was Ameer. In our interview, Abdullah vividly recalls 3 big games from his senior year of 2010. A game against Bessemer City when he scored 4 touchdowns in the first half, 3 of which came in the first quarter. A memorable victory on the road at Oak Mountain, and a crushing loss at Spain Park in overtime. In that game, Ameer went off for 177 yards and 5 touchdowns, but the Patriots lost when a 2-point conversion was stopped by Spain Park. You'll hear him explain why the Jags were able to stop the play, but interestingly, the interim head coach at Spain Park during that game was our current head coach, Ben Bergeson. And yes, Ben has confirmed that the Jags stopped Homewood on that play because of the exact reason you'll hear Ameer explain. Abdullah was heavily recruited by SEC football programs, but because of his size, most schools wanted him to play cornerback and or specialize in kick returns. Abdullah, however, wanted to play running back and held out until a school promised to give him a chance at that position. The Nebraska Cornhuskers gave him that chance, and he thrived. You'll hear his impressive college numbers later, but suffice to say for now that he finished his time there as a Heisman candidate and a beloved Cornhusker legend. Ameer made it to the NFL, where he has played for Detroit, Minnesota, Carolina, and currently the Las Vegas Raiders. Once football is over, he plans to transition his career into filmmaking as a producer, writer, and actor. In fact, working with Cuba Gooding Jr., he has just finished filming his first movie, Gooding's upcoming film, Break the Cycle. I'm honored that this summer Abdullah took some time away from his busy training schedule to talk with me about his time at Homewood. He loves history, so as a professional historian like myself, we connected in that regard, but also in our love for our hometown. So, without further ado, from his current home in Las Vegas, let's welcome our 14th legend, Ameer Abdullah. Hello, Ameer. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's just jump right in. I don't want to waste your time. Contrary to what many people may assume, given your name, your family roots in Alabama go way back, right?
Way back, way back. I would say the origins of my family start in Mobile, Alabama, and that's my dad's side of the family. My mom's side of the family, they're from Birmingham. They're from Birmingham, Alabama. And yeah, to your point, contrary to what my name, a lot of people, it's funny you asked that. I actually just went through a little bit of a discourse with somebody who was at the gym I was just training at. They were asking, Abdullah, where are you from? I was like, man, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. They were like, oh, and they were trying to correct me. They were like, but no, where are you from? Like, asking the question was going to change any answer I was going to give. But I was like, look, man, I'm an Alabama boy from my mom's dad's dad's dad, my dad's mom.
Yeah.
We're Alabama people. Alabama people.
Yeah. Well, as a historian myself, I was interested to learn that your mom was a close friend of Denise McNair, one of the girls that was tragically killed in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing.
Oh, she was. I want to say they were like next door neighbors.
Wow. And then
Yeah.
your dad was involved in the Selma to Montgomery March, right?
Yeah, he was. He was there. I'm actually outside of football. I've taken up film, a lot of producing, directing, cinematography myself as well. And I'm actually currently writing a short film on that experience of my dad.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, it doesn't get more deep Alabama than that, right? So
Right.
I bring that up not only to, to talk about your roots, but also I always take the chance every time I can to make sure that people realize that the Jim Crow era wasn't that long ago. I mean, a lot of times people have it in their head that it was a long time ago in a galaxy far away, but it really wasn't, right? I mean, that's your parents. Yeah.
100%.
Listen, the great school system aside, did the diversity at Homewood play a role in why your parents moved you into the district?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And I always I kind of brag on that. I think what always set us apart was the diversity that we had, but also still the excellent academics. And I think that's where the crossroad of what Birmingham really is, the melting pot of what Birmingham really is, really shows itself the most when you have schools like a Homewood, where you have kids from all different sides of culture, African American kids, you have white kids, we had Asian kids, we had Hispanic kids, we had everything. And I think it allowed me to be very well versed when I left Homewood and I went super far away to college because if I didn't have that experience, say I went to like a Mountain Brook, or something that's a little bit more just this,
Yeah.
then I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be as much of a chameleon. A lot of people who meet me, they're like, hey man, Ameer gets along with everybody. He can always find something in common with everyone. I think that's because going to Homewood, I had so many different groups and cultures to kind of pull from.
Yeah, man, I love hearing you say that. But yet, saying all of that, still saying all of that, I'm guessing that after 9/11, you still heard some disgusting stuff.
Brother, man, it was crazy. I'm young. Around that time, I think I was like in fourth grade, third or fourth
Yeah.
grade, and of course, the name, Ameer Abdullah. The last name Abdullah is funny. I tell all my friends, if you go to like the Middle East or you go to anywhere else in the world, really, Abdullah is like having the last name Johnson. It's actually
Yeah.
very
Right.
common
Or
last
Smith, right?
name. It's not as exotic or out of this world as it is here, but I always get questions of just like, where are you from? Where are you from and things like that. And a lot of that really began, and that idea of my name makes me stand out really came a thing after 9/11. When I was, kids, they ask questions because they're inquisitive and they don't know any better. But when
Yeah.
I was young, I would get a lot of ignorant questions of just like, do your parents support terrorists or
Oh,
this, that,
gee.
and third? And it's just like, and you can't blame them. They're just kids. They don't know
You're
any
just
better.
kids.
They're just kids. But it's, obviously it for a while, it really messed up me psychologically because I am an Alabama boy through and through, was born in Birmingham. Culturalistically, I'm much more American than I am anything else, and anything else.
And
So I was
Southern on
always
top of that, right?
Southern on top of that. So I was always a little conflicted on like, man, am I viewed as a good person? A lot of times. And obviously I'm really grateful that I come from a very stable home where my mom and dad always reinforced of like The only thing you can do is control what you can control. Don't try to control how people may view you because some things that are going on in the world. As long as you present yourself as a respectable young man, the world will eventually, see that and take that at its value. But I had some crazy stories. I remember I was playing AAU basketball in middle school. We had traveled up to Hartsville, Alabama,
Oh,
Hartsville,
goodness. Yeah.
up by close to Huntsville. I think that's close to Huntsville or something.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
and I'm at the free throw line, and the opposing crowd thought it would be funny to chant terrorist, terrorist
Oh,
while I was at the line. And you
that's
know,
Alabama, sadly.
it is Sally, but for me, like I have a kind of a dark sense of humor, so like I can always find a little bit of light and funny, a little humor and everything a little bit because it's just really unbelievable because it was parents, it was kids, everyone kind of joined in on it. But me, I just I made the free throw and I counted my points and we beat the team pretty badly. So I guess that was I got the last laugh.
That's right. That's right. I'm glad you hit those free throws. That's for sure. So listen, I think you probably already answered this, but football aside, what's one of the things you loved most about growing up in Homewood?
Man, really just probably Homewood Park. Me and my buddies, man, we would have the most epic basketball battles. Just a community of guys who love to compete at sports and they love to be outside was what I really enjoyed about growing up in a Homewood community because I mean, I live in Vegas now. I know the weather has a little bit to do with it because it's really hot here, but I never see kids outside.
Yeah.
I train every morning at this field at this park in my community, and I'm the only one out there. I don't see
Yeah.
any kids out there, and they got basketball courts, they got fields, they got all this stuff. I'm like, man, if we had this, if we had like, because we were playing sandlot ball, if we could just find a strip of grass that was good enough to play football. They got soccer fields, they got football fields
And
that
they're
are
not
like
out there. Yeah.
no one's out there, and I think that's what I really enjoyed about the community of Homewood the most.
Yeah. Very athletic community. When did
Mhm.
you start playing football and why?
Well, I mean, I always play football. Like my oldest brother, Muhammad, he played at Alabama State. And so I started playing like sandlot basketball, I mean, backyard football when I was like 6. I was always playing with guys who were like 4 years older than me, which I always attribute that to, helping me expedite my maturation process as an athlete. I got really good really fast. But I started when I was 6. And then I started playing organized football, like an actual like youth league when I was like 10 or 11.
Yeah. Did you play at
And
the
that,
middle? Did you play at the
yeah,
middle school?
I played in middle school. Coach Gibbons was my coach. Coach Robbie Gibbons was my coach. Played running back and defensive back then. When I got to high school, I was a huge fan of Percy Harvin at Florida. So I got the great idea to try to move to slot receiver. But our offense was not good for slot receivers. So I never got the ball. I remember that. I remember going home and telling my dad, like, man, I think I made a mistake. Like, because I played running back all the way up until that point. And then freshman year, I probably had like 6 catches the whole season. And I remember just like in those moments every day of practice, just thinking like, man, I got to get back at running back. I have to. I have to in some way, some form of fashion, because I just felt like I wasn't able to really show my talent during that time. But junior year is when they actually moved me back to running back. Junior year was decent. And then my senior year is when I took off. That's when I took off. Yeah.
Yeah. Besides you at tailback, the biggest thing I remember about you on the field is punt returning. Man, you were electric with punt returning. You
That
took a lot of pride in that, didn't you?
I did, man. I think that's what and it's funny, my career's reflected that a lot, every stage of the game I've been at, where my freshman year, I wasn't getting the ball a lot, but I still scored like 6 times, and they were like all kickoff returns. I still
Yeah.
remember it was and I really enjoyed that part of the game because, like I said, I was looking up to guys like Percy Harvin, at the time. He was in the backfield. He was playing receiver. He was returning punts. And it's interesting, man, even now with the Raiders, that's kind of how they use me now, where you see me in the backfield, but you also see me at receiver. And then you can also see me returning kicks. So it's interesting to see how that dream or that seed that was planted so many years ago in the way I saw myself or how Homewood was using me
Yeah.
still continue to, be transparent in how I'm being used today.
Yeah. It seemed like every time that you were back there to catch a kick, we were always expecting he's going to do something, but you better watch out. Look, pay attention. You were definitely electric. What about coaches? You played for Coach Wright when he was head coach.
Yep,
You
Coach D.
guys were
Wright.
playing. You sadly, unfortunately for you, you were playing at a time when Homewood was playing in a classification that was probably too high for where we needed to
Yeah, we
be.
don't have enough students. I remember, and this is no shade to the other guys I'm playing with, but I remember me and my left guard, we were like only 10-pound difference, and I wasn't a big guy,
Yeah,
and we're going against Hoover, who's signing 10
yeah,
guys one
right.
every year, and
Yeah, we had no business being in that classification.
we
It
didn't.
was very frustrating because it's particularly your senior year. You guys had a really good team that I think if they had been playing down a classification, it could have really done some damage.
Probably would have ran the table because
Yeah,
me and just the tandem of me and Aaron Ernest was very dangerous because
yeah.
Aaron Ernest was still to this day the fastest kid I've ever shared a football field with. Like
Wow.
I always tell people that because he ran like 10-1 in the 100, like super fast, like Olympic level speed. I always tell my friends when I'm in the NFL when I'm talking about Aaron, we ran the reverse as a normal play. That wasn't that wasn't a trick play for us. We
Right.
ran in reverse like 2 to 3 times a game.
Oh yeah.
Still couldn't stop him because he would just if he turned that corner, it was over. It
Yeah.
was over.
Yeah.
So
All right. What game stands out to you the most? What's the most vivid game that you've got in your mind from high school? I
both
think
of
I
my
know one of them that you're going to name because I remember it was incredibly exciting. But let's see if we agree.
man, it's like three of them. It's like three of them really.
Okay.
So the first one, and I'm gonna go like out of this chronologically, it's going to crescendo up to from least exciting to the most. All right.
Okay. All right.
In the top three, my first one was the first game of my senior year, actually. And I scored 4 touchdowns in the first half. Like, I want to say my first carry went for it was an inside zone, right? I cut back, beat the linebacker. It was like a 70-yard sprint. I don't think I got tackled until like my third drive. Like literally didn't get tackled. So I ended that game with like 4 or 5 touchdowns, something crazy. So I was like, oh man, I felt different. I could feel the hard work that I put in
Right.
that summer, which I want to tell the story about what I did that summer after I say this.
Okay.
But the second game would be we were playing at Oak Mountain. It was at Oak Mountain away. And Oak Mountain was never as talented as us, but they play hard. They
Yeah.
always play really, really hard. So the
Yeah.
game was always really close. And I'm like, man, why are we close to these dudes, man? They like small, they're not like, I don't get it. But we were like, it was like 10-14, something like that. We're down by like 4. They Stephen Baggett, the lefty, he throws me a swing route. And Oak Mountain at the time had a player. He was like high school good. His name was Rico Dunn. Rico
Mhm.
Dunn. He comes out from the safety position, and it's just me and him. Well, actually, the corner came up. I think they were in like cover 2 or something. The corner was hard pressed, so receiver missed the block. Corner's right on me. I put a dead leg on that guy, and then I got Rico Dunn right there, and it should have been a kill shot. He should have smoked me, but I lowered my shoulder just in time, and I like lifted up and flipped this dude, and then I carry on to run and score for like 50 yards up their sideline. I do like a somersault in the end zone. They throw a flag on me because I'm just so excited. We ended up winning that game on the road, which was like one of those moments. It was one of those games where I just felt like Superman. Where
Yeah.
like
I remember it well.
the first tackler couldn't tackle me anytime that whole game. But the most exciting game of my high school career was a game we actually lost.
Yeah.
We,
Okay. I think I know what you're about to say.
we're playing Spain Park.
That's it.
Playing Spain Park. And this game means a lot because we had some guys on our team. These guys end up moving to Spain Park. And we should have beat this team, man. We should have beat this team.
Yep.
But I'm having a crazy game. I say I had one run where I like started to the right, cut back on like 4 guys, almost score. I ended up scoring later that drive. And then I had another run while I broke up the middle, and I make the a guy who went to Homewood, who ended up, transferring to Spain Park, make him miss. I score right there. And man, who was my OC coach?
Coach Jones at that point, wasn't
Coach
it?
Jones. It was
Yeah.
Coach Jones. I told him not to run this play. I told him not to do it because Jamel Cook, the guy who transferred from Homewood to Spain Park, He knew this formation. We only got in this formation and ran this play. We didn't run Wildcat much, especially not in the red zone. And if anything, they couldn't stop me the whole game. Like, they were all in the box. If we were going to do Wildcat, you should just let me just run it and try to score myself. Or let me try to, make it a race to the pylon at the edge or something.
Right.
But he wanted to do the Tebow jump pass. We run it. Jamel Cook slaps it down, and
he saw it coming.
He knew it.
Yeah.
We broke the huddle, and he's like whispering to his teammates. But that was the most exciting game for sure.
Yes, I remember that game very well. I remember that play very well. How frustrating it was. And you probably just answered this question. I was going to ask you if you could go back in time and change a play, which would it be? I think you just answered it.
That play. 100% it'd be that play, because I think for one, winning that game, we probably would have made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Probably would have made the playoffs, which would have been the first time I ever made the playoff in my career. Think about it. I never made the playoffs in my whole.
Well, again, it's because we were in the wrong classification for sure.
I agree. If we played down, if we were playing in 5A my senior year, I think we would have fared pretty well.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Coach Wright had to be the head coach during that. Besides him, any coaches that had a big impact on you?
We had Coach Arvia Holmes. Let me start with him. He was our receiver coach, but he really took me under his wing, because when I was there, we weren't necessarily a football juggernaut. And
Right.
I always like the intention of like the coaches were to make sure everyone had fun, which was good, and make sure everyone was involved. And that's where my pride would always kind of get in the way, because I always saw myself as elite. I always saw myself as an elite player. A lot of times we would like rotate me out, put other guys in at running back, just so they can get some carries and stuff. And for me, I'm thinking, dude, I'm trying to get a scholarship. Why are you not giving me the ball? Why am I going to drive? So Arvia Holmes was someone who really brought me back down to earth to help me realize that the greatest gift you can have in life is community, which is family. You can climb all these mountains all you want. Eventually you're going to get to the top of that mountain and realize you're alone if you're leaving everybody behind. And that's something that he really brought me under his wing and taught me. So I think that actually helped me get along with my teammates a lot better as my career went on at Homewood. And then Coach Crowder, he was pretty much just like my biggest hype man. He was someone who, after my junior year, he really believed in me, like that I could play in the NFL, that I could play major D1 football, and he would feed that positive affirmations every single day. I would say he was definitely a big support in just my morale.
Yeah.
And of course, Coach Gann. Coach Gann was great. He always keeps it light. He's a real funny guy. He was real funny, so he always keeps it light. And I think a lot of that rubbed off on me, because I'm the same way now. A lot of these young guys that come in the league now, they're so anxious. They're always just like, what do I do next? What do I do? I'm just like, relax, man. The sun is going to come up, and the moon's going to, it's going to go down, bro. The day's going to keep going. And Coach Gann was very much that type of way. He was always the same person. So I would say just his even keel attitude was really positive for me. But really the wild card that was probably the best coach that I had there was not a football coach. Coach Esslinger. He was the track coach. That was my guy. He really understood me. He really had my back in so many situations. And anytime I needed to talk to him or his wife, Amanda Esslinger, they always had my back. And still to this day, if I go back to Homewood, those are the people who I'm texting the most, just because they really became my family. Those people really became my family. And Otis Leverett was, still to this day, he's the greatest trainer I've ever had. Just very much like Coach Crowder, he saw something in me that a lot of people, they didn't necessarily see. And that was potential to be great. And he actually was coming to see his stepson, Destin Challenger, who went to Homewood at the time, play. And he was training Destin. He was training another guy on my team named Cameron Broadnax. And he was also training Jameis Winston at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He had on facility up on 280. And he came up to me and my dad after the game was like, you know what, man? I think if your son really just comes with me and trains with me, I think he can be a really good player. And of course, the question is always like, how much does it cost? And Otis was like, I don't charge. And it blew our mind. It blew our mind, because I'm like, what? You don't charge? He was like, no, I don't charge to train kids. He was like, I always felt like, because he played 9 years in the NFL himself, he was like, I always felt like if I had the opportunity to ever teach this game at this level, I would always want to give what I, learned for free, because that's my way to give back. And I
Wow.
think that was one of the, that was so selfless, and it taught me a lot about just like community, where every single day I was me, Destin, Jamel Cook, Cameron Broadnax, Jameis Winston, a couple other guys, Michael Jackson, he plays for the Seahawks now. We're all training with Otis, and we had no clue how, where our careers were going to go. Of course, me and Jameis, we ended up being in the same draft class. He goes first round, I go second round, and all that started with Otis Leverett, the greatest trainer I've ever trained with, for sure.
And he was bringing you to all the camps, right?
Yeah, he was. He was like, he took me that summer going into my senior year to two very important camps. The first one was a Nike Elite Spark camp at the University of LSU. And I'm talking everyone was there. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Jeremy Hill. These guys had already had their rankings and accreditations stamped. Me,
Right.
I was a late entry because I had tested well at like some Nike Spark camp where you do combine testing. So I didn't even, I didn't even have a name on my jersey. Those other guys had a name on their jerseys. I ended up going to that camp, killing it. I got MVP of the whole camp. And that's when people started to realize, like, man, who's this dude? This Ameer Abdullah dude who was, going out. That kicked it off. And then the next one was the Alabama camp at Tuscaloosa, which was probably my best camp. Like 2 weeks later, I go against James Wilder, who was the number one player in the country at that time. Jadeveon Clowney was there, and I get MVP of that camp as well.
Wow.
And then after that camp, that's when I get to talk to Nick Saban and his famous words, which I thank him for these words all the time. He probably don't even remember me, but Nick Saban told me to my face, yeah, I think you could be a kick returner for University of Alabama. But that really motivated me to be like, he thinks I'm just a kick returner,
Yeah, right. I can do more than that.
I can do way more than that. So my work ethic was born through my trials and tribulations at Homewood. I was always an underdog. I'm still am. You know what I mean? I always felt like I had to work harder than the next man to really make myself stand out. And the summer going into my summer year, my mom gave me a book from Tim Grover. He's the trainer of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. He trained both of those guys. He talks about the year before Kobe Bryant won MVP. He wrote a contract out to himself, literally a contract to himself that says, every day I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And just to give you guys in short what that looked like for Kobe was he was going to work out 5 times a day. What does that take? Getting up early in the morning. So Kobe was waking up at 4:30 every day in the morning, in the gym at 5:15. Hour workout, go home, see the kids, get breakfast, be back in the gym or the weight room, whatever he was doing at 7, right? From 7, take a break, be back in the gym at 10. Boom. Back in the gym at 1. Boom. Back in the gym at 4. So what he was saying was, Kobe explained it as stealing time. He started to become a time stealer, time traveler, where as guys, his peers were working out 1 time a day for 5 days a week, he was working out 5 times a day for 6 days a week, right?
Right.
So he was getting 30 workouts in a week while these guys were getting 5. So he got a lot better, way faster than his peers. So I read that chapter and I made that my regimen. I wasn't doing 5 times a day, but I was working out 3 times a day every day that summer. My mom would tell it, we lived off of Valley Road. We lived off of in some apartments off Valley Road in Homewood. I would wake up at 5 o'clock every morning. I would run from Valley Road all the way to Homewood Park and back. And that run had a lot of hills, a lot of different things. I even got to the point where I started putting on a weight vest. I would run down and I would come back every morning. And then when I got back in the morning, it'll be around like 7. And then my buddies would come and pick me up and we would go and train at Homewood, the stuff we had to do with the team, right? We would go and train, we would run routes, do all that stuff, work out. I would come home, eat. Otis Leverett's picking me up in the afternoon. I go out to 280. I'm throwing with Jameis Winston. I'm throwing with all these other guys, and I'm coming home. I did that every single day, like not even skipping a day. When you're young, you can literally go every single day. So I was going Sunday to Sunday every day doing that type of work. And when I got to my senior year, Glenn, man, I felt like I knew every game that I was a different person. My swagger was different. My confidence different. And I mean, my stats speak for themselves, man. It was a crazy year. Obviously, I think a lot of things kind of were slotted because I didn't play for a successful team. But
Yeah. Well, like
you
I
know,
said, that was that region classification thing that was holding you back, I think.
but I take all those things as like more things to put on my shoulder because when I got invited to the Alabama Mississippi All-Star game, I went down there and I got MVP of that game.
Right.
So like I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder, but I would say the work ethic that I built from Homewood, you know, really was the pride and joy for me of my experience there. Because when I went to Nebraska, once again the chips were stacked up against me. I was the last recruit to commit to the University of Nebraska, and I was in a class where they already had 2 running backs committed. One, Aaron Green, who was the number 2 running back in the country, and then they had a guy named Braylon Hurd, who was a late qualifier from the year before, who was the number 5 running back in the country. And they had Rex Burkhead, so I was an afterthought. So I think if I didn't have that experience of like always feeling like I was an underdog early, I would have tapped out at Nebraska. I would have tapped out.
Right. Yeah. Well, it sounds like they call it a chip on your shoulders, but it sounded like it really served you really well. That's for sure.
100%. 100%.
So listen, I do this thing that I stole from inside the NBA that they call Nito stats. As a senior at Homewood, you ran for 1,822 yards, which is 5th highest in Homewood history.
Wow.
Had 24 touchdowns. You also had 33 catches for 515 yards on top of those rushing yards and scored 4 times on punt returns. You averaged 6.6 yards per carry, which is 9th highest in Homewood history. You're 6th all-time in total touchdowns at Homewood. You had 85 receptions, which is 9th all-time at Homewood. You said you didn't make All-State, but you did make honorable mention All-State from the Alabama Sports Writers Association in 2010. You were the Birmingham News' South Player of the Year in 2010. You were, as you just said, you were selected for the Alabama and Mississippi All-Star game in 2010, scoring the winning touchdown in overtime. Your junior year at Nebraska, you had close to 1,700 rushing yards, which is 4th most in Nebraska history. You stuck around for your senior year, even though you could have gone to pros, but you stuck around for your senior year, becoming a Heisman Trophy candidate and a semifinalist for the Doak Walker Award, which is amazing. You're Nebraska's all-time all-purpose yardage leader with 6,605 yards. That goes back to your work on special teams for sure, as well as their single game all-purpose yardage leader, 341 yards in a game. Woo! You're the only player in Nebraska history to record 3 consecutive seasons with 1,000-plus rushing yards. You were the MVP of the 2014 Senior Bowl. You're only the 4th Homewood player to be drafted to the NFL and only the 3rd to make an NFL roster. And then this one I think is the most impressive of all. The average NFL career today is 3.3 years, 2.57 for running backs, but you're about to start your 10th season in the NFL. and that's not even a complete list. So
I think I thank you for running that down because sometimes I'm just so much on my path that I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
I don't even think about it, but
well, stay on that path.
I want to guess some of those Homewood stats of who's number 1 though. I want to kind of guess some of those. Is Brandon Thornton number 1 on a lot of those?
Brandon Thornton is still number 2, but Robert Davis. Have you ever heard of Robert Davis?
Of course.
Yeah, Robert Davis is still the top rusher in Homewood history. But Brandon Thornton, yes, is still up there as well. So, but that's some good company, man.
Yeah, for sure.
That's some good company.
I remember being a kid going and watching Brandon Thornton when they were winning state championships, man.
Yeah. And again, I keep saying this over, but I really believe this. If we had been in the right classification during your time in Homewood, your numbers would have been
for sure.
Higher.
Oh, yeah, crazy.
Even higher. Okay. Lastly, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I want to do this thing that I also stole from other sports shows that I call rapid fire. So you ready?
Yep.
Who was your favorite teacher? Not coach, but who was your favorite teacher at Homewood?
Oh, Mr. Perkins. Yeah, he was an English teacher. He was really into like the arts and like theater. So when we were like going over Hamlet, he would come in dressed up as Hamlet and all that. I thought that was cool. Everyone thought he was nerdy, but I actually thought it was cool.
It's a good way to get people involved.
Yeah.
What was your favorite subject? I'm assuming history.
History. Yep.
Yeah.
Coach Bagley he was a basketball coach at the time. He also taught history. He made history really fun for me.
Bagley, by the way, is the new athletic director now that Doug Gann has retired.
Oh,
Do you know that?
oh,
Yeah.
congrats, man.
Yeah.
Congrats, man. That's my guy.
Yeah. Favorite food from the lunchroom?
Crispito Day for sure. Shout out to every lunch lady that ever handled any plate that I ate. You guys did a great job. The Crispitos were top tier.
That's great. What was your social media of choice in high school?
It was Facebook. Facebook had just started.
Yeah.
Yeah, Facebook had just started.
It's so funny to me that Facebook is now sort of considered to be for the old people.
Yes.
And it started for college students, and then it
Right?
moved to high school students, and then everybody's grandparents got on it, and now it's
Right.
old people.
Yeah.
All right. But
Look, I'm left behind too. Like, and like you said, I'm starting my 10th year. These young guys come in the locker room. They call me grandpa now. I'm like, what? I
yeah.
don't know.
Okay. The year is 2010. It's a summer night. You're cruising through Homewood. What's playing on your CD player?
Ooh, probably John Mayer. I was a huge John Mayer fan at the time. The Continuum album from John Mayer for sure.
What would you have been driving?
My mom's black Mazda 1996 Mazda 626. It was a 1996.
Ooh, that's a pretty sweet ride.
I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, it was missing the back passenger hubcap, but other than that, it was getting the job done. It was getting the job
Yeah,
done.
when you're in high school, you're just glad to have anything to drive, right?
Amen.
Where would you have been cruising to?
Probably Sonic, either Sonic or Waffle House, or Purple Onion. We would do the Purple Onion every now and then, but somewhere to get food for sure.
Well, that leads to my next question. What was your favorite Homewood restaurant back then?
Ooh, back then, Sam Super Sandwiches.
Ah, yes, great answer.
Sam
Great
Super
answer.
Sandwiches, brother.
What was your favorite hangout?
Ooh, favorite hangout. One of my best friends still to this day, his name is Carter Freeman. He had the cool mom. His mom was the mom that let everyone have the parties and stuff at his house. So the hangout was Carter Freeman's house.
That's a good answer. At least you were staying out of trouble, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. She would at least be able to watch us.
Right. Any movies from that time period that were a particular inspiration for you?
I used to really love the movie Gridiron Game. I don't know. I just really loved that movie just because the main character was a running back. The main character was a running back, and I couldn't necessarily relate to the story because I'd never been to juvie or anything. But I mean, to me, it was just cool just to see, like, to know that that was a real story that happened, and just to see people having their lives being able to be transformed by the game of football. I think that's the greatest joy of this game is it's affected and transformed so many people's lives and communities, brought so many people together. Like, think about the Super Bowl. So many people come together just to watch the Super Bowl. Like,
Yeah, right.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then lastly, and then I'm gonna let you go. Can you sum up your time at Homewood in one or two words?
I would say it was unbelievably believable. It's such a roller coaster to me actually getting the offer from Nebraska, but that whole time I never doubted it, and I don't want to ever take for granted the support that I had along the way. From Mr. Perkins and English to Coach Bagley to Coach Esslingers to Coach Jones to Coach Gann, everyone. Even Coach Shepard on the basketball team to Otis Leverett. It was an unbelievable path, like all the things that had to happen, but it's believable to me because when that moment came, it felt right. And I was like, you know what? I deserve this. And Homewood was behind me.
That's great. Just talking to you, I think you really need to consider writing some kind of motivational book at some point in your life.
Well, I am a writer. I am a writer. I guess that was a perfect segue. I write screenplay now. I'm actually writing a film and an animated adult sitcom right now. But I also write poetry, and a book is definitely in the works. I didn't know what direction I wanted to start in. The first book that I'm writing right now is just kind of like the Daily Stoic. Yeah, you can just get a new tidbit of a thought of mine that can either motivate you or make you just think about the world that you're living in a lot differently. But my dad has been trying to encourage me to actually write a book about like my story as well. But
Yeah, well, someday you probably should.
I appreciate
Well,
that.
Amir, it was really my pleasure to meet you. Like I said, I saw every game, and it's not exaggeration. I saw every game you played at Homewood, so it was really exciting to be able to talk to you and to finally meet you.
Well, it was a pleasure to come on, Glenn, and hopefully we can chat again soon.
Okay, great. All right.